welcome back to Seek the Joy podcast. Happy Seek the Joy Tuesday. I am your host, Sydney Weiss, and today we are celebrating 5 years of Seek the Joy podcast. And I know I say this at the top of every anniversary episode over the last 5 years, but I cannot believe it. And I am just so grateful for the journey and for everyone who has been on this road with me. Whether you've been listening to this podcast from the very beginning, or you just jumped in, or you jumped in halfway through, whatever, thank you for being here. And thank you for pressing play and for being part of this incredible community and journey. You know, when I sat down to publish our first episode in October 2017, I was scared. I'm not going to lie. I was scared. I did not know what to expect, but I could have never imagined, predicted, or believed we would make it to 5 years. When I think back on the Sydney that hit publish on that first episode back in 2017, I don't even recognize her. Like, I have grown so much. I have widened my perspective. I truly believe and know that I see the world through just a more holistic and community-minded lens. And I really know in my heart that I have this community and this podcast and this platform and these connections and these conversations to thank for that. And truly, there isn't a day that goes by that I am not incredibly grateful. I wrote this down maybe a year ago, maybe it was a year and a half ago, that gratitude is a welcome reminder that on the other side of challenge and adversity is a moment for growth and increased kindness and perspective. And certainly there have been moments of adversity in all of our lives over the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. But this ability to come back to who we are and what makes us who we are and this connection and this community has been life-changing for me. So today's episode is a celebration. We're celebrating 5 years, and don't worry, I will tell you all the amazing things we've accomplished together in 5 years, but it is also an episode that is very bittersweet for me and has been very hard for me to record. And it is also an episode with an announcement. I don't even know how do I transition? You know, that's one of the things that's so hard about talking to yourself on a podcast is how to transition. And you would think after 5 years I would nail it, but I haven't. And I've been reflecting a lot lately. And I've been thinking a lot about a mantra and an affirmation that I've kept really close to me over the last decade. And if you've been listening to this podcast for even 5 minutes, you know what it's going to be. It's stay patient and trust your journey. And I have kept this mantra close to me because there have been so many moments where I felt impatient and I did not trust the process and I did not trust the timing or the journey. I have learned so profoundly in the last 5 years that life is a journey and we are constantly evolving. And yes, there are moments of struggle and moments of profound victory and joy. There's so much that happens in between those two dichotomies. But life really requires us to be patient and trust the path that is unfolding in front of us. But my God, is it easier said than done? Truthfully, there have been many, many, many moments where I've questioned my path. I still continue to do that. And I think that's really why this affirmation continues to resonate so deeply for me and with me. Over the last 5 years, I have learned more about myself than I ever thought possible. Through our conversations and the connections that have been made on this platform, I have pushed myself outside of my comfort zone. I have developed greater comfort with my voice, and I've been thinking about where my story, going back to a moment of reflection, I've been thinking about where my story with this podcast, with Seek the Joy, with you, really began. And I think my story really starts when I was 12. I basically declared to everyone and anyone who would listen that I wanted to be a lawyer. And at the time, I don't think I knew why, but as I look back on it now, I really realized that I wanted to be an advocate. I wanted to speak up for others and for myself. And at the time, that was really the only model of advocacy that I had. So yeah, I went to law school. And if we fast forward to April 2016, as I was preparing to graduate and make that lifelong dream a reality, I had shingles. It was debilitating, and truthfully, it should have been my wake-up call that I needed to slow down and reevaluate my path. but it wasn't. And a month after sitting for the California bar, I had appendicitis. And by the time I found out that I didn't pass the bar exam in November 2016, I was in a space of shame and anger and embarrassment, and truly months, if not years, of not listening to my body and running myself ragged and being downright mean to myself took its toll. That was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Enough was enough. And so I decided it was time for a change. And over the next year, I took a lot of time to get to know myself. I started listening and trusting to my intuition more. And for the first time in my life, I really started to peel back the layers and understand and love who I am and who I really wanted to be. And having that opportunity in and of itself is a privilege I will spend the rest of my life feeling grateful for. And so by the time I sat for the California bar the second time in July 2017, I was in a different space. I was in a different place with myself, mind, body, and soul. But little did I know, it was truly just the beginning. I know I've shared this story so many times on the podcast, but I'll never forget. It was like September 2017. I was still waiting to find out if I passed the bar exam or not, but I knew something in me had shifted. And I remember experiencing this moment of inspiration and excitement. I knew I wanted to start a conversation and create a way to connect with others who had similar stories and experiences. I wanted to build a community and a space to share these stories, to explore what makes us human, to explore our joy and learn and grow through stepping into our vulnerability, our courage, and making the choice to reconnect and even discover our authentic voice. And I'll never forget, it was like a random night in September, and I just thought to myself, oh my God, I've got to start a podcast. And there were so many fears and reasons not to do it. Like, when you have an idea and there's something you really feel excited about and passionate about, but there's something inside of you that's stopping you. I just remember my own insecurity around my voice, my lisp. What would people think about me? It was like a loop of like, what would people think about me? Would I be judged? Would the stories I'd share about myself and others be well received? Would people resonate with what I shared here? But in that moment, the desire to create, be creative and connect and share these stories overpowered any fear or doubt that I had. So I took out my journal, started sketching out my idea. I remember the first time I recorded, I didn't even have a microphone yet. But the next thing I knew, Seek the Joy podcast was born. I published my first episode the first Tuesday of October, and then about a month and a half later, I found out that I passed the California bar exam. And while that remains one of the proudest moments of my life, sometimes thinking about it just makes me cry. I really know and believe that I would not have passed that bar exam if I didn't get knocked down and learn to pick myself back up. And there was something that I learned in that moment too that has stuck with me and that I have shared time and time again on this podcast. There are always going to be roadblocks. There are always going to be challenges, but it is through discomfort and uncertainty that we grow so much stronger than we would without those challenges, because it is within those moments that we get to learn about ourselves, that we get to understand who we are and what we are really capable of, what resonates and what doesn't, what motivates us and what is not in alignment with who we really are. And I am so grateful for those challenges. But I've also learned, and this is probably the most important lesson over the last 5 years, I've also learned that these moments of adversity do not fully define who we are. It's more so what we choose to do with these moments and how we choose to pay it forward. I really believe, though, and I think about this quite often, I told you a theme for today would be reflection, but I really believe that if I had passed that bar exam the first time, I would not have learned to slow down and be kinder, gentler, and more compassionate to myself. And truthfully, self-compassion is a continuous work in progress for me. I know so many of you can resonate with that too. And it's something that I work on daily. But overall, I am pretty sure, I know without a doubt that I would not have felt the inspiration to launch Seek the Joy podcast. Since that moment 5 years ago when I hit publish for the first time, which I can still remember so vividly in my mind, This podcast has been listened to in over 65 countries. I have received more emails and messages than I can even count. Messages echoing words of support and encouragement, you sharing with me your journey and your story and what has resonated with you from these different episodes. I am so grateful for this privilege to connect with so many of you, so many amazing people, both of whom I had the chance to interview for the show and get to know as personal friends, but also all of you who tune in from wherever you are in the world. And what has been so incredible and so unexpected, well, actually, the whole thing has been really incredible and unexpected, but I never thought that I would go on someone else's podcast and share more about my journey and the journey of Seek the Joy. And to date, I've been featured on 45 different podcasts. I never would have expected that this podcast would get to 5 years, or that I'd have the opportunity to share our story together with so many different audiences. I think it was not even 6 months into the podcast, I realized that there was no way I was going to be able to share every single story and every single person who I wanted to on Seek the Joy. And so I created a blog series called Joy Corner. And I have loved every single moment of sharing over 326 profiles on Joy Corner. I created a sister podcast called Stories of Inspiring Joy that was built out of a series that we had here called The Power of Storytelling. And to date, we have shared over 193 stories on Stories of Inspiring Joy. Last year, I hosted Seek the Joy Summit with over 500 attendees. We hosted a summer series. And as of today, this is episode 267 of Seek the Joy podcast. I could not be more proud of myself and what I've created and accomplished and shared over the last 5 years. Over the last 5 years, I have been open about my own journey, from my health, my experiences with the bar exam, at times waning confidence and self-worth, my anxiety, career challenges and changes, friendship changes, my experience while in quarantine and the pandemic, what immense grief and loss has taught me and what that has been like. And sometimes I have worried that I am being too honest. But your messages and your feedback continue to remind me time and time again why I started, why it's important to share. And the truth is, and I've been saying this since day one, so it feels appropriate to say it again here, the truth is you never know how your bravery, courage, and joy will inspire someone else to stand in their truth and share their story. As I reflect on the last 5 years, I can't help but notice how much my life has changed since 2017. It has changed in ways I never could have imagined. This podcast has been a living and breathing diary. It's been incredible. I know I've grown. I have experienced profound loss. I've woken up to a greater sense of self-confidence and trust that I just did not know was possible. And truly an acknowledgement and recognition that, every day presents a new challenge, but now more than ever, I feel more up for it than I've ever felt before. I have learned how to embrace change, embrace grief and moments of uncertainty. I have allowed myself to embrace my joy and passion, creativity, hope, and wonder. I have allowed myself to dream in ways that as a little kid just did not feel comfortable or possible. Oh my God, I told myself I wouldn't cry, but it's coming. You heard me cry on this podcast before, so this is not going to be a shocker. But this is incredibly emotional for me, and it's an incredible moment of reflection and recognition, because we often don't take time to sort of acknowledge where we've been and where we are and where we're going. And so what a gift truly to allow ourselves to experience this vast range of our own human experience, even if it means we hold joy and hope and optimism at the same time as grief, sadness, loss, and disappointment. I said a moment ago that this podcast has been a living and breathing diary for me, and it's presented such a unique opportunity for healing. And Oh my God, if you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, you know that healing takes time. And in moments of deep grief and change, I have allowed myself, in ways I never expected, the opportunity to feel it all. And oftentimes, no, more often than not, share it with you too. A huge lesson for me over the last 5 years has been that we can bring meaning, joy, and gratitude to every moment. And that recognition and that ability to do so in and of itself is a gift. I have been and I will continue to be so grateful to this community, to all of you who tune in to Seek the Joy podcast, Stories of Inspiring Joy, who have read Joy Corner and our newsletter. Because without your love and your support and your encouragement, everything I've done over the last 5 years just wouldn't be where it is today. And I just know I would not have had the opportunity to grow, share, and connect in this profound way either. I cannot even begin to tell you the immense gratitude. It's kind of pouring out of me right now, but the immense gratitude I have for this platform, for you, for this opportunity to connect and share. And so it is so incredibly bittersweet to share that this will be the final episode of Seek the Joy podcast. I have really sat with this decision for months now, trying to decide if it's the next right move. But something kept tugging on my heart to listen to myself and listen to where I am in this moment. And then I spent time once I made the decision trying to figure out how I wanted to share this with you. I'm recognizing more and more that oftentimes we leave chapters open in our book because we're afraid of what it means to close it. Who am I without this podcast, without this platform, without these conversations? And in many ways, it feels like it's time to close this chapter and open space for a new one. But I am so confident it is not goodbye. Oh, it is not goodbye. It is just see you later. I'm learning that with every evolution and change, there comes an opportunity to revisit where we've been, which is what this whole episode has been so far. And while I am saying goodbye, I am also making the conscious decision to leave the door open to come back to this podcast and to this space if and when the time is right. If and when the inspiration strikes the same way it did for me in 2017. This sense of gratitude, this moment of reflection is really overwhelming. I'm so grateful. This community kept me afloat through the height of quarantine, through the loss of my grandfather and my grandmother, through changes in my career, through an evolution of who I am as a person. And I said this at the top of the episode, and it feels appropriate to say it here again. Gratitude is a welcome reminder that on the other side of challenge and adversity, on the other side of change, is a moment for growth, increased kindness, and perspective. If you've ever made a change in your life, and we all have, and so you know this to be true, it is so hard to walk away from something that you have loved so much. But I cannot escape this feeling of needing to honor myself and where I am in my life right now and provide myself the space and the opportunity to evolve and embrace this present moment and whatever is next. I was really, really hoping I wasn't going to cry, but I think that was wishful thinking because this podcast and this community and these connections and these conversations have provided such a unique opportunity for me to formulate a more meaningful relationship with myself. And I know I have this podcast to thank for that. Thank you for the opportunity to connect with you week in and week out over the last 5 years. Thank you for providing me with an opportunity to learn, to get to know myself more, to be exposed to new ideas and ways of thinking. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to begin my journey of advocacy through storytelling. through creating this beautiful, compassionate, and empathetic space for all of us to show up as who we are. And thank you for the constant reminder that we get to choose how we show up in this world. And not to sound like too cliche, but it's me, so we're going to throw in an extra cliche for good measure. Life is really a gift. And it has been an honor to have spent the last 5 years of my life with you. I can't even begin to list, like in a comprehensive way, what I've learned about myself, about the world, about connection, about community from this podcast in the last 5 years. I feel like I sprinkled it throughout the episode. But what comes to mind the most, the lesson that is blaring at me right now, is this reminder to take the risk. It's this reminder to be vulnerable and allow for moments and people to enrich you and to enrich your life. I am learning more and more that pausing when we need to is a vulnerable choice, but it's a necessary one. I am learning more and more that allowing space for something new is vulnerable, but a necessary choice as well. And what a gift to really allow ourselves the opportunity to pause and recognize the role that something has played in our lives. I cannot thank you enough for this journey. I cannot thank you enough for being here. I cannot thank you enough for 5 years. 5 years. This has changed my life. And I just so hope that there has been at least one episode, one moment, one conversation, one light bulb that has helped to change your life too. I have said this from the beginning, and so I will close this out by saying this as well. I am a firm believer that we all have a story to share and a voice that is meant to be heard. And it has been an honor and a privilege to share your stories, to share your voices and experiences, to remind us all of our connection, of our resiliency, of what makes us unique, but also this beautiful reminder time and time again that we are so much more connected than we even realize. And so while I am hanging up my microphone and headphones for now, just know that this feed will remain. You can always revisit old episodes and conversations and reach out and connect whenever you feel like it. I have never been good at transitions on this podcast. You would think after 5 years and countless solo episodes, I would know how to end this, but I don't. And let me just say this. I knew this was going to be emotional, but oh my God, did I underestimate how emotional this would be? So I want to end by saying this. Thank you to everyone who has been part of this journey. Thank you to everyone who has been part of Joy Corner, Stories of Inspiring Joy, and Seek the Joy podcast. Whether you shared your story or you tuned in or you read a feature or you shared it with someone in your life, in your community, I will never be able to properly thank you nor express how much this has meant to me. So all that I can really say is thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So for the last time, at least for now, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning into the podcast and pressing play. Thank you for your reflections, your honesty. Thank you for taking the risk to explore your own vulnerability, to explore your joy. I have learned so much, and I just hope that you have too. So while this is our final Seek the Joy Tuesday, at least for now, just know how grateful I am. I am sending you a lot of love and happiness and joy and opportunities for reflection in your own life. And just know that Seek the Joy podcast and Seek the Joy Tuesday will always be here. Big love. Sincerely me. Wait. We have to hit the outro just one more time. One more time. All right, here we go. Seek the Joy podcast is a production of Seek the Joy Media and created, produced, and hosted by me, Sydney Weiss. You can tune into all of our episodes on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're enjoying the show, hit follow and leave us a 5-star rating and review. Make sure to join the community, join the conversation on our social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We are at Seek the Joy Podcast everywhere. And don't forget, you can actually watch today's new episode and all of our episodes on our brand new YouTube channel. Click that link in the show notes to subscribe and tune in. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you right back here next week for another Seek the Joy Tuesday.